It's April 3rd, 2024. I'm in the United States of America with a Federal Reserve, an ONE, and an In God We Trust, or INGODWE Trust. Um, there's this one, which is the U.S. Treasury. There's the White House, and then there's Independent Hall. Um, so yesterday, um, I spent the day. Well, I woke. I preface this. On Sunday, we um, got to see my children, and Tia Frio asked my son and I, my youngest son, to go out to eat in a fast food restaurant. So we did. And then I had a bagel in the morning, and then there was a fast food stop, which is unusual and out of the ordinary. Um, by Tuesday, I started getting this haze over my eyes. It's this thing that's been coming and going. I can't quite ascertain where and what's like what being exposed to that causes this change in vision. I called both my primary care. Of course, going through my head are things that I've heard, like diabetes, possibly. And um, but again, I'm relying on the level of medical care in the local health system. So there's two options for me. And there's potential positives and negatives on either side. Um, it's like if you have a health problem, it's almost like a battlefield right now. Like I can't explain it any other way. Like I going into the Northwell system, I look at treatment that I've had there where it's almost like really hostile engagement with guerrilla warfare. Um, and that started in 99 when it was Long Island Jewish, but I didn't know that Jews didn't like Christians. I'm just learning that on the Channel 7 news that in the Holy Land they don't like them. I don't know how the treatment in New York is, except I know that how I was treated. And but the thing is that they didn't look in the local area like what was presenting itself with that word when I was younger, out in Cold Spring Harbor. So that got confusing. Um, and then the friendly under that label persons around my dad at times that I was introduced to, I didn't see any kind of, like again, at some point you have to trust humans, I suppose. Again, being RH sensitive, I don't know like where I'm trying still to figure this out. So anyhow, so I've gone in to Northwell before. The insurance suggested this child from elsewhere under the label Chen. Again, I don't know like Chinese dynasty and if it's the emperor. Like I don't know their history at all. I'm in America. My dynasty lessons were genetic appropriate for my upbringing. But now there's this diversity. So this gets really confusing with neurodivergence, and dissidence. So they corral me into this doctor, and I get this scan under Northwell, and she calls me and says that it's non-significant or whatever it is, like it looks normal. I let it go. But the vision changes keep happening, and there's times where unexplained fogginess. Um, my legs stopped working for a while. I was going out for walks. There was a lot at that time. I don't know what was going on around the world. I don't. Socioeconomic, political, in the sports categories. Like I'm in this like blind. And so, but I'm walking down the streets and there's a lot of car traffic. This was maybe a year and a half ago. I was taking videos of me walking down and my lips turning white, and then there was some kind of substance in the breathable air that I was breathing in. My skin started peeling. It was an absolute mess. So I don't know what kind of chemical it was. But I it felt like a chemical attack. Um and so I was going to see the healthcare professionals, but not really getting anywhere. And my health just kept getting worse and worse and worse. Um, and so now, flash forward, um, over the last year, I saw this Northwell representative. So I called my primary, who's Northwell Health, and then I called my most trusted advisor at this point, which is Trada for hematology oncology, and but she's with Catholic Health. Now, I when I went to Catholic school, when I walked in the building, they seemed to know I wasn't, or they, I mean, there was an angry nun. Let's just put it that way. She was angry. She wasn't dressed in the habit, but she was, when I went into theology for the first time, she let me know that the Catholics don't like the Protestants. And I'm like, well, that's the first time I've ever heard that. I was like, my dad was supposedly one from Italy, and my mom is whatever she was here in America, so they don't really talk about it. I that's why I'm here in theology in school to learn. So like, is it okay that I'm here? I mean, I didn't realize that there might be some kind of like hostile engagement between the school and myself. Just walking into Oyster Bay in Nassau County, St. Dominic's. So, um, and that would be like under the wheelhouse of Cardinal Timothy Dolan for New York area. Although it was, we really got along, her and I mean, I was not combative, I was not sent to detention, I don't talk back, I was very obedient in that classroom setting. And I really was trying to stay engaged in learning like what it meant to be Catholic, um in respectable things, and then to offset it to whatever my experience of Episcopalian was. Um, so um, I that was that. So now I'm going to Catholic Health, um, and I have to say they the facility is really well kept. Um, the customer service of the team that helped me yesterday was stellar. They really went out of their way, and I have to thank them for that. Although I will say, on Northwell's behalf, when I went there for the break in my ankle, um, the staff that night, when they took me in, they were stellar also. They were really nice care for that one experience. It's not consistent there, however, thus far. And so, yesterday I go and I get a neurological scan because I have this cloudiness in my eye and I don't know. So I asked if there was like a toxicology screening, but again, I don't know what to ask for, um, because I'm not in that field. And she says, "Well, are you on any medication?" And I'm like, "No, but what about like household hazards or whatever?" And she's like, "No." So, and again, I don't know if it's microbacterium, like I just don't know what vector it might be from. So they did with contrast and without contrast. I got a different doctor at that facility, which is Haddad. Um, and there was a very interesting doctor. I was out in the hallway, and this one doctor just, I mean, I tried not to like to stare at them all, but I got nothing else to look at. So, but he was wearing, which reminded me of um, those stupid wooden clogs that I had back in high school at CSH. I don't even know. That was one of those weird, like, Eon events, like shopping for a t shirt and a pair of shoes, and then not really remembering how I received those or where I was shopping with those things, but then wound up in my high school wearing those things. Um, so, but he was wearing a pair of clogs, which was not like the wooden pair that the whatever, and I bought together, but it was definitely along those lines. Just, I don't know if they were wooden on the bottom, but they were very unusual, not only for a man to wear, but I didn't see any of the other like staff wearing them yesterday. So I met with the doctor, a different doctor. I met with several of the doctors. Uh, they said my levels of thyroid were okay. Now all of a sudden my thyroid's off again. So again, it's exposure to these things that I'm not really clear on, and it's not consistent exposure. Um, but now something's going on with the thyroid again. So I'm gonna go down that route. So, um, and then today they followed up twice with two different phone calls, which I greatly appreciated. Um, I was trained in customer service at Merrill, so by a very wonderful customer service team. I was learning the ropes of the job at the desk at Merrill Lynch, and I had this fabulous Somerset, New Jersey team, um, who were almost like the mentors of, like, they were the back office. We were the front office. So we had a wonderful rapport with them. They were like our designated team. I remember them fondly, um, or in good memory. Um, so, and that carried through with me my entire adult experience whenever I'm with or around persons. I always try to hold that level of executive training forward. So, um, yeah, so that's what went on yesterday. So now Catholic Health has their copy with their doctor. Northwell has their copy with their doctor of same brain scan, where luckily neurologically, like, the it's not narrowing of anything. Everything looks correct. Um, and after the contrast and a bag of saline, the cloudiness started to dissipate. So I don't know what, if it was, again, I really, I don't know. Physiologically wise, the anatomy is intact, the anatomy is okay. It's just the physiological experience that is encountering these disparities. So um, that was how I spent yesterday. Today, I went on Zoom with my um, local um, church, and one of the lessons was speaking of whatever and the whatever. Um, so I was listening and I was asking questions um, because there were some things I was unclear about in the passages that they use um, about the 11 and about Jerusalem. And she said about the 12, but the betrayal and the down to the 11. Um, so that seemed very relevant and important in this moment. Um, Also, I have my first set of taxes because I finally have a place to go for income. Um, I've been shut out of the employment world with all of these really bad health effects of moving back to Queens. It's almost like being thrown into this microcosm of it looks like poss- possibly like the possibility, the more I turn the television on and I look at what's going on at Ukraine level and Israel level and all of these factions that I've never even heard of before, and then going out in my local area and seeing these cursive scripts from elsewhere at like a UN level, and then other scripts that at times they say it's Chinese, at times they say it's Korean, and then Arabic, and I'm like, why are all of these potentials like fighting? I mean, it's and like if there's cross fighting in I don't know what their economic situation is elsewhere. Anyhow, um, but being put into this really dangerous position of I'm just trying to survive with my son. And I don't understand why all of these allowances or entitlements, or I don't know how any of that works. So I go, I finally get this year it was not a 1099, it was a W-2. So I went to call Buscemi, but Buscemi's cell phone is no longer working. I don't trust the accountant that Rich used. There was some Fugazi stuff that went on there. So I will not be calling Walter back. And then I went to call 311 because I made, um, I think it's like less than, I have to look at it, but I think it's less than, it's definitely less than 5,000. I mean, it's definitely less, I think it's less than 2,000 for the year, um, the whole year. So I have to find tax preparation services to put that layer of like a trained professional CPA between myself and the whatever. So I call 311 because they offer free tax prep. And when I call, this is what I find, which the first thing, the closest tax prep that's free is something called Shinhan Bank in Flushing. I they're only open on Fridays. Then there's something called Metro Plus Health, but it's a tax service for like IRS level tax. And I'm like, why is it a health service with accountants? And they're on Roosevelt Avenue in Flushing and share the same phone number, even more odd, with Shinhan Bank. And then there's Min Kwan Center, who has more availability, also in Flushing. And I'm like, this is the, like, I mean, where's Hamilton? Here we are. It's at US Treasury level. And I'm just, I'm confused how a health, Metro Health, and how a bank are offering accounting services for IRS prep work inside of the US bank system. That's like, again, gets a little confusing from my end. So I'm now, I don't know what to do. So I think I'm going to ask my father for the name of whoever he uses. Um and just simple, I mean, again, it's ridiculously low amounts of monetary value, but it's um participation. Oh, and yesterday while I was at Catholic Health, over the page, over the loudspeaker, I heard they kept saying that there was a high census. And I'm just, they put the message out. I heard it once and I was like, I heard it. And then later on they repeated it one more time before I left. And there was some other things over the loud system, which I'm not going to say whatever they were in the whatever, but they did mention high census twice. Um, and that seemed really important. And then also yesterday, unusual for me, is I called to rely. I got dropped off at the hospital. I called both my father and Tia Frio to come pick me up. Neither one was available. Um, and the nurse actually did something like so unexpected and so touching. She actually offered to pay for my ride home. So, and she ordered me a car service. So for that, I'm incredibly thankful and grateful. So thank you to her, and to the hospital staff for that. I really appreciate it. Um, and the the car that they sent, it was a really beautiful piece of artwork and machinery. It was not like the typical car service. So again, I really appreciate that. Um, I'm in that at the moment. So that's what's going on in my local area. And again, I only asked for Flushing, or close proximity to Bayside, because I have to get a ride there or take the bus. There were other places in Jamaica. When I called 311, she would have given me whatever information I needed. I just didn't have, I just, I didn't want to travel too far. And then when I started getting the feedback of what was available for this free tax prep, um, I was concerned. Um, Concerned about the way that I know the American system is and expects, and what is now available. And I don't have like a US Treasury level or like a Jackson level person that I trust enough to really ask, except my dad. So I'm just going to use his accountant at the moment. Um, but I think, like, just to base that off, like, if I only made $1,000 or $2,000, it's, I think his accountant charges $350. So I mean, again, it's the cost of goods and services. Um, it's it's not, again, it's there's some things that are off, but um, and I went back to Stop and Shop today to help my parents because I'm trying to stay on my feet because I have to go back and it's 4 hours on your feet. So I'm trying to stand for longer lengths of time in preparation of going back. So that is what is going on. I did mention on the Zoom call, um, I'm like, I do remember in English language arts a story about King Arthur and the Round Table, the knights. of the round table. Um, that's critically important because then there's also the table where Jesus sits with the disciples, which is at a rectangle shape. It's conversations. But they're both important at the whatever, whatever, whatever. So that's what's going on for me. So um, I've noticed that from when I was last walking on the boulevard and getting hit in the face with these chemical, whatever they were burning, I don't know, like in their gas tanks, as I was walking up and down the street and breathing it in and making note of it also with the FDNY, whatever was coming out of the grates, that they checked. They, just so I don't sound crazy, like they actually used a machine and it beeped in some significance that only the emergency workers know of for their reporting and keeping the city whatever. Um, but there was definitely something coming out of that, that I mean, just in my normal path, I'm breathing in, um, and then going to the hospitals. It's just, but it just feels like, unfortunately, I'm going so much, and I don't want to be caught in this rut and in this cycle of deteriorating health. I want to be healthy. I want to have options to be healthy, and to raise my son, but it just feels like I'm in some kind of cycle around here where financially I can't even get my own footing and ground. I don't know how to access entitlements whatsoever. I've applied for SNAP and all these other things, but I always get denied for some reason in the city. Um, and employment's been incredibly hard to come across. I finally was able to secure something at Stop and Shop, which is something to do with Maryland, um, for their corporation, um, which I'm grateful for the opportunity. But I'm also really grateful that they have security cameras overhead, just so there is no question of my interaction with some of these locals. Um, because in the local area, I've had a problem, where they asked me to actually leave Starbucks. And then I had one of these psychos, the area manager, who followed me to a second location and told me that I wasn't allowed to be served any longer. And I'm just like, exactly why am I not allowed to be served at Starbucks? It's a coffee place. So, like, I'm, again, really confusing, public interaction with my person. With, I don't know what they know, what they've discovered, I don't know what they're researching, I don't know what's going on around. There's like no communications whatsoever other than whatever's coming on through on the television. um so um so that's it. So I have to file a tax return now. um and oh, and there was something that they filed some tax lien against me. I don't know what the heck that's about. I haven't had any work, so there was nothing to report. Um, and again, like even going through school, like there's like who's supposed to teach these things? It that gets confusing as well. So, and I don't know, like, who are the tax collectors? Because this tax collection gets really confusing, um, in districts and zones, um, and who are the representatives who are teaching, and so on and so forth. So, this gets confusing. Um, and it's like, again, when you go in to the hospital setting, it shouldn't be like a battleground or a battlefield. I mean, of social diversity with like foreign born and studious whatever who are here. And like, I mean, it just, it adds to the confusion. And growing up, my parents didn't have health insurance. That's something that's new. But with this benefit of health insurance, it is like becoming a subject in somebody's research experiment. Like it, but you don't necessarily want to be part of it, but you don't know how to get out of it. You need it, but so, and I don't know what an HMO is as opposed to a PPO. Um, and how that's tied into some of the other like aerial phenomenon that's going on, with the induction of all of these cell phone technology and stuff. I mean, there's just been like this one explosive growth that happened in a short period of time. And at one point, it was like Long Island was filled with lawyers. Like, oh my gosh, there was a law office, and there were multiple law offices all around town. And then at some point, it was like they all just disappeared, and it became doctor's offices. And I, things just started changing. I don't know what that's about. Um, It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole, Cattaruzza, it's Earth, solar system, Milky Way, universe, galaxy is broken, and it's Bayside Station, Bayside, New York, 11361.